You wake up, your alarm has already nudged you out of a dream, and the first thing you reach for isn't your sense of purpose, it's your phone. A dozen notifications blink back at you, little digital breadcrumbs pulling you into someone else's priorities. A news headline, a meme, a message from work. Before you've even stepped out of bed, your attention is no longer yours. This is where it begins. The slow erosion of your life, disguised as routine. You're not lazy. You're not doomed. But if you don't pause, if you don't notice, you'll wake up one day and realize that the life you're living is not the one you meant to build. Let's dig in. 1. The habit of micro-escapes. You're not a procrastinator in the traditional sense. You don't sit around doing nothing, but you escape constantly. Micro-escapes, tiny, harmless-seeming moments where you avoid what actually matters. You're working on something deep, and suddenly you remember to check your email. You open a browser to search for a quote, and find yourself reading comments on a post. You feel an emotional spike, and unconsciously reach for your phone to dull it. It feels like nothing, but it's everything. Every one of these micro-escapes rewires your brain to fear depth, to fear stillness, to fear boredom. And that's lethal. Because all your genius, your real creative power, lives on the other side of boredom. You don't need to quit the internet. You need to reclaim your inner space. You need to train your attention to stay to rest inside a moment without running away. This is not about willpower. This is about identity. Who do you become when you stop chasing little comforts? You become someone dangerous, someone focused, someone alive. 2. The habit of task addiction. You feel productive. You're ticking boxes, responding quickly, meeting deadlines. You're fast, efficient. On top of it all, you go to sleep feeling accomplished. But deep down, something's off. You're always catching up, never ahead. You're busy but not fulfilled. You're building but not leading. This is the trap of task addiction. Your brain is addicted to closure. The hit of dopamine you get from finishing a task, any task, is real. But it tricks you. It makes you chase low-leverage work. It convinces you that responsiveness equals effectiveness. It keeps you in the weeds, reacting to life instead of designing it. You're not here to answer emails. You're here to build empires. The solution isn't to stop doing tasks. It's to stop being defined by them. Schedule space for high-leverage thinking. Delegate aggressively. Automate where possible. Guard your strategic energy like gold. Because here's the truth. Anyone can work hard. But few people can think clearly. Fewer still can lead with vision. Don't be a high-performing robot. Be a conscious architect. 3. The habit of preemptive doubt. Before you even begin, your brain whispers a warning. What if this fails? What if people laugh? What if I'm not ready? And so, you stop. You delay. You redesign the logo for the 20th time. You read one more book before starting the podcast. You tweak, polish, hesitate. This is preemptive doubt. It masquerades as preparation. But it's really self-sabotage, wearing a responsible face. You want certainty. But creativity isn't built on certainty, it's built on action, on trust, on starting messy. You can't think your way to confidence. You earn it by doing. Every rep you complete silences the inner critic just a little more. Every post you share, every call you make, every line you write, it all adds up. Don't wait to feel fearless. Move with fear beside you. Let it sit in the back seat, but never let it drive. 4. The habit of emotional over-identification. You feel lazy, so you believe you are lazy. You feel sad, so you believe you are broken. You feel afraid, so you believe you are weak. This is the trap of emotional over-identification. Instead of seeing emotions as visitors, you adopt them as identities. And over time, your self-image gets polluted. But feelings are not facts. They are data, not destiny. A lazy afternoon does not make you undisciplined. A few unmotivated days do not make you a failure. A burst of anxiety doesn't mean you lack courage. When you can sit with your feelings without becoming them, you win back your freedom. You're not here to be emotionally perfect. You're here to move forward despite the storm. The most powerful people in the world feel what you feel. They just don't let it anchor them. 5. The habit of externalizing validation. You post something thoughtful, but it gets few likes. You try something bold, but no one notices. You do something hard, but there's no applause, and it stings. Because somewhere along the way, you gave the audience your self-worth. You outsourced your internal compass, and now your confidence swings with the algorithm. This habit is soul deep and devastating. You were not made to be a mirror. You were made to be a sun, to generate light from within, to radiate regardless of who's watching. Every time you do something good and no one sees, it's a spiritual test. Will you still show up? The strongest signal you can send to the universe is this: I don't need a witness to stay faithful. 6. The habit of endless preparation. You research, you plan, you outline. You wait until the website is just right. The funnel is set. The camera's perfect. You wait and wait and wait. And one day you realize you've been preparing your entire life. This is the paralysis of perfection, the prison of potential. You don't need more time, you need a threshold. A point where you say, it's good enough to begin. No, you're not ready. But no one ever is. The winners are not the most prepared. They're the ones who began despite the butterflies. Let others perfect. Let them polish. You're the one who moves. You make noise. You figure it out in public. You take hits and keep building. And in a world addicted to polish, raw action is revolutionary. 7. The habit of identity fracturing. You act one way with your family, another with your coworkers, another online, another when you're alone. At first, this seems normal. Everyone adjusts to their environment, right? But over time, this fractures your sense of self. You start living in compartments. You can't tell what's real anymore. You second-guess your instincts, lose clarity in decision-making, and burn out from trying to remember who you're supposed to be in each situation. This habit robs you of integrity. Not moral integrity, but structural integrity. The kind that holds a bridge together. Real confidence is when your inner life and outer life match. When what you say, think, and do are aligned. When you stop performing and start being. That kind of wholeness radiates power. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be one person. 8. The habit of cynical humor. You joke about your flaws. You laugh off your failures. You turn pain into punchlines. And it feels like power disarms judgment. It makes you relatable. But underneath that humor, there's a quiet decay. Because when you use self-deprecation too often, your brain stops recognizing it as a joke. You turn insecurities into identities. You teach people to expect less from you. Worse, you teach yourself to. There's a kind of humor that builds community. But there's another that builds a cage. You don't need to be deadly serious, but be mindful of the jokes you tell about yourself. They become the stories your subconscious listens to when the world goes quiet. Tell better stories. 9. The habit of passive consumption. It's not just social media. It's podcasts, books, videos, courses, tutorials. You're always consuming something, sometimes even productive things. But your brain is stuffed. You feel like you're learning. You feel like you're doing something. But you're not creating. You're not expressing. You're not testing your own mind against reality. You've turned your brain into a warehouse instead of a laboratory. Passive consumption creates the illusion of progress. You know more, but knowledge without action creates mental obesity. You become a bloated thinker with fragile confidence. The antidote? Create more than you consume. Talk about ideas out loud. Make terrible drafts. Post before you're ready. Act before you understand everything. The world doesn't need more informed spectators. It needs courageous participants. 10. The habit of momentum guilt. You finally start. You build a streak. You go to the gym, wake up early, write for 12 days in a row. You feel unstoppable. Then life happens. You get sick, or distracted, or demotivated, and you miss a day, then 2. And suddenly, it's all ruined. So you quit. This is the habit of momentum guilt, the belief that consistency has to be perfect to be valuable, that if you break the chain, it wasn't real. This is the enemy of real growth. Consistency isn't about never missing. It's about always returning. Champions don't avoid falling. They get up faster. Momentum is helpful, but resilience is non-negotiable. The gym is closed today? Do 10 push-ups at home? The writing muse is silent? Write one sentence. Can't meditate for 20 minutes. Breathe deeply for 2. Honor the identity, even when the habit stutters. That's how you outlast everyone. 11. The habit of intellectual isolation. You get deep into your niche. You follow all the right thinkers. You read obsessively in your industry. You feel smart, focused, ahead of the curve. But slowly you start repeating ideas, echoing others, circling the same mental territory. Because you've built a cognitive bubble. Innovation lives at the intersection of disciplines. Creativity needs collision. When you only talk to people who agree with you, when you only read in your domain, your mind atrophies. You become a copy of a copy. Break out. Talk to artists. Study history. Argue with kindness. Follow thinkers who challenge your worldview. Let fresh air in. Not to change who you are, but to sharpen it. 12. The habit of speed addiction. You pride yourself on speed. Quick replies, fast decisions, instant pivots. You move at the pace of modern life and people admire it. But there's a cost. Speed kills depth. Not always, but often. The faster you go, the less you notice. The less you question. The less you feel. Speed is a tool, not a virtue. Use it to execute, not to decide. Use it to deliver, not to reflect. Slowness, when chosen deliberately, is a superpower. Take walks without your phone. Read physical books. Stare at something long enough to feel bored. Let your brain remember what it's like to breathe. The deepest answers are not hidden behind more speed. They're hidden behind more stillness. 13. The habit of constant comparison. You open your phone and someone has launched a business. Someone else got married. Another person is traveling the world. And you're still sitting in your room, wearing the same hoodie, wrestling with self-doubt. Comparison used to be local. Now, it's global, instant, intense. You're no longer competing with your neighbors. You're up against filtered versions of millions of people you'll never meet. And it's not just about envy. It's about erosion. The slow disintegration of your self-trust. The quiet questioning of your path, your pace, your value. Here's the problem. Comparison hijacks your inner compass. It makes you abandon your mission to chase someone else's highlight reel. You start dressing like them, talking like them, building what they build. And slowly you disappear. You don't need to win their game. You need to own your terrain. Every minute spent measuring someone else's progress is a minute stolen from building your own. Mute if you must. Unfollow. Log off. Not because you're weak, but because you're focused. This isn't about being unaware. It's about staying unshaken. 14. The habit of seeking closure too soon. You meet someone, and there's tension, a spark, but it's undefined, so you press for answers. You launch a project. It flops. You want a reason. You demand clarity. You face a conflict. And instead of letting discomfort breathe, you rush to resolve it, even if it means lying to yourself. This is the habit of premature closure. It's the anxiety of ambiguity, the fear of not knowing. And it drives people to make terrible decisions, choosing wrong answers just to escape open questions. But growth lives in ambiguity. Wisdom lives in the waiting. Can you stay in the not knowing? Can you sit in the mess without sweeping it up? The longer you can dwell in uncertainty, the stronger your decision-making becomes. Learn to say, I don't know, without shame. Learn to sit with the ache of open loops. Closure is not always the goal. Sometimes it's the enemy. 15. The habit of over-optimization. You tweak your schedule. You color-code your calendar. You track your macros. Optimize your workflow. Calculate every second of your morning routine. And yes, there's power in optimization. But sometimes it becomes a mask for fear. Fear of chaos. Fear of failure. Fear of facing what really matters. You optimize the small things to avoid the big things. You spend hours setting up systems but never ship the project. You write perfect plans but never launch the business. You obsess over margins but never make a move. Optimization is useful, but it must serve execution, not replace it. You don't need a better app. You need a bolder action. Don't be the person who spends their life organizing a closet they never step into. 16. The habit of rehearsing failure. Before the meeting, you picture yourself stuttering. Before the pitch, you imagine rejection. Before the post, you assume backlash. You rehearse failure so often that your body starts to believe it's real. This isn't preparation. It's mental sabotage. You're not being realistic. You're being cruel. Fear-based visualization kills momentum. It trains your nervous system to expect collapse. Instead, rehearse recovery. Rehearse resilience. Ask, what will I do if it goes wrong? Not, what if it goes wrong? Picture yourself standing up after the hit, not just getting hit. That's courage. That's power. Your imagination is a rehearsal space. Use it to build strength, not simulate defeat. 17, the habit of protecting your old identity. You want to grow, to evolve, to break patterns. But you still cling to the version of you that people expect. You still wear the labels others gave you. You still feel loyal to the past version of yourself. Why? Because identity feels safe, familiar, predictable. But real growth demands betrayal, not of your integrity, but of your former self. You will outgrow people, places, patterns. Let that be okay. You are not here to maintain a legacy. You're here to build a future. The past you is not your master. It's your starting point. Upgrade your beliefs. Redefine your role. Evolution isn't betrayal. It's destiny. 18, the habit of under-celebrating wins. You finish the project. You hit the milestone. You finally do the thing you feared for years, and you move on. No pause, no breath, no celebration. This is the quiet self-punishment of high performers. You don't let yourself feel proud because you think it'll make you soft, but uncelebrated wins turn into unprocessed pressure. And over time, that pressure erodes your joy. Celebrate, not with ego, with presence. Savor the moment. Let the achievement land in your nervous system. Let your body know what victory feels like, not to brag, to build resilience. Because if you never feel like you're winning, eventually you stop playing. 19, the habit of emotional minimalism. You say you're fine. You shrug things off. You smile through it. But inside there's a traffic jam of unprocessed emotions, fear, anger, longing, confusion, all backed up behind the red light of your emotional suppression. Somewhere along the way, you learned that feelings were distractions. That being emotional was weakness. That being unshaken made you strong. But what you don't feel, you don't heal. Emotional minimalism looks like control, but it's really detachment. You disconnect from pain, yes, but also from joy, from intimacy, from aliveness. The irony? Those emotions you stuff down, they leak. In sarcasm, in passive aggression, in chronic tension, in sudden explosions over small things. You don't have to overshare. You just have to feel. Start small. Admit when you're sad. Name what scares you. Let yourself cry. It doesn't make you soft. It makes you real. 20, the habit of manufactured busyness. You fill your day with tasks, meetings, errands, emails, DMs. You check boxes. You cross things off. You stay productive. But under the surface, there's a hollow truth. You're hiding. You're not building. You're buffering. You're creating the illusion of momentum to avoid the discomfort of stillness, the moment when the real questions echo. What am I avoiding? What actually matters? Busyness is a seductive drug. It gives you dopamine, praise, a sense of forward motion. But real progress is rarely loud. Sometimes it's sitting with a hard problem for hours. Sometimes it's deleting the checklist and making one bold move. Sometimes it's doing less, but with more soul. Remember, movement isn't always progress. Don't confuse flailing with flying. 21, the habit of micro-dissociation. You check your phone while someone talks. You scroll during meals. You watch videos you don't care about. You float through life half-present. This is the age of micro-dissociation tiny moments, where we escape reality not with big addictions, but with small, constant exits. You're there but not there. You survive the day but don't feel it. Over time, this fractures your memory, your focus, your sense of connection. You begin to feel like life is passing by. But it's not that life is too fast, it's that you're not truly in it. Presence isn't just poetic, it's powerful. It's how you reclaim your attention, how you rebuild your inner peace, how you start to feel alive again. Try this. Put your phone away during meals. Look people in the eye. Breathe before you respond. Make reality your home, not just your pit stop. 22, the habit of deferred aliveness. Now one day when I have more time, when I make enough money, when things calm down, you put joy on layaway. You postpone your real life until the perfect conditions arrive. But that someday never shows up. And even if it does, you're so used to postponing that you don't know how to receive it. You get the time and feel guilty for resting. You get the money and still feel scared to spend it. You get the freedom and fill it with tasks. Aliveness isn't something you schedule. It's something you choose. In this moment. In small ways. Every day. Dance without filming it. Laugh without irony. Take the long walk. Make the messy painting. Say the scary truth. Stop deferring life. Start devouring it. 23. The habit of self-explanation. You over-explain. You justify every move. You narrate your intentions so people won't misunderstand you. Why? Because you fear being misjudged. You fear being labeled as selfish, weird, intense too much. But every time you over-explain, you shrink. You chip away at your self-trust. You make your choices look negotiable. You don't owe everyone a PowerPoint. You don't have to put disclaimers on your dreams. You don't have to water down your truth to be understood. Say what you mean. Then stop talking. Not with arrogance, with clarity. That's power. 24. The habit of quiet desperation. You smile. You nod. You function. But inside there's a storm. You ache for meaning. You hunger for connection. You yearn to be seen, heard, known. But you don't ask. You don't speak. You don't reach out. Because you've learned that neediness is shameful. That hunger's unattractive. That vulnerability is risk. So you suffer in silence. But here's the truth. Your silent scream won't save you. Your quiet desperation won't dissolve on its own. You must interrupt it. With one brave action. One real conversation. One honest cry for help. You're not broken for needing more. You're human. And every time you give voice to that need, you loosen the grip of loneliness. You begin to rise.